If India is such a close partner, they would back Australia, right?
That is the common explanation, since both countries have expanded defense ties through Quad, joint exercises, and regular ministerial dialogues. You see it in exercises like Talisman Sabre 2025, where India joined alongside Australia and other partners in large-scale coordinated operations.
So, cooperation equals commitment in a crisis?
Most analysts would say deeper interoperability signals growing alignment, especially with shared concerns about China across the Indo-Pacific region. Australia is also investing heavily through AUKUS and broader defense planning toward 2030, expecting partners like India to reinforce regional stability.
But is India actually tied into those commitments? Or just participating when it suits them?
On the surface, participation suggests willingness, and mechanisms like joint staff talks and submarine rescue cooperation reinforce that perception. This is why many assume India would naturally align with Australia in a conflict scenario involving regional security.
Then, why does that assumption still feel uncertain? If alignment is growing, why does India still rely on Russian systems?
That is often explained as legacy dependence, since India built much of its force structure around Russian platforms over decades.
But S400 deliveries continue through 2026, not just legacy. And Su-30MKI remains their backbone fighter fleet.
That is true, and it suggests operational continuity matters, especially when replacing entire systems before 2030 is not realistic. India is diversifying with platforms like Rafale Marine, but transition timelines are long and integration is complex.
Then why deepen ties with Australia if dependence persists?
Because India can still expand cooperation in areas like maritime awareness and exercises without fully restructuring its defense ecosystem. For example, both operate P-8 maritime aircraft, which allows coordination and surveillance even without deeper integration.
But coordination is not the same as shared combat systems. And not the same as shared risk either.
That may not fully explain it, since interoperability at the exercise level does not automatically translate into wartime alignment decisions. There could be more behind this, especially when operational dependencies and strategic flexibility are considered together.
So we have alignment signals, but operational realities still don't match, right?
Yes, and that suggests the issue is not just political alignment, but something deeper within how India actually sustains and operates its military systems.
Are we missing something beyond alliances and exercises here? Something that explains why cooperation stops short of commitment? Because the pattern keeps repeating across different domains.
That could point to a structural constraint rather than a policy choice, especially when you consider India's dependence on multiple supply chains. For example, S400 systems require Russian support, while platforms like P-8 and Rafale depend on Western integration and logistics frameworks. That creates a fragmented sustainment architecture that cannot be easily aligned with a single coalition in wartime.
So it is not about willingness, but about what can actually be sustained?
Exactly, and that may be the critical variable we have been overlooking in this analysis.
Then interoperability is not just about sharing platforms, but sustaining them together?
Yes, because operating a P-8 in coordination is one thing, but integrating targeting data, maintenance cycles, and command systems is far more complex. And when those systems come from different suppliers with different protocols, integration becomes constrained under real conflict conditions.
That would explain why cooperation looks strong, but stops at a certain depth.
It also suggests India is preserving flexibility by avoiding full integration into any single military ecosystem before 2030.
So the hidden variable is not alignment, but sustainment and integration limits?
That could change the entire picture, but we still need to understand exactly how it shapes decisions in a real conflict.
So how exactly do sustainment and integration limits shape wartime decisions?
They shape everything, because modern combat depends on a continuous kill chain linking sensors, data processing, command systems, and shooters across multiple platforms. If those elements are not fully integrated, even advanced systems cannot operate as a unified force under real conflict conditions.
You mean platforms like P8 or Su-30 cannot plug into one system?
Exactly, because P8 from Western architecture and Su-30MKI from Russian design follow different data protocols, maintenance cycles, and command interfaces. This creates friction in real-time targeting, where data sharing, validation, and engagement decisions must occur within seconds.
So the issue is not capability, but how systems connect. And how fast decisions can move across them.
Yes, and this becomes critical when scaled across a theater like Indo-Pacific, where distance, logistics depth, and communication latency all compound. For example, integrating targeting data from an Australian P8 into an Indian system may face delays or restrictions due to incompatible networks and security protocols.
That would slow the entire response chain under pressure.
It does, and over time this affects readiness, because sustainment pipelines for S400 or Su-30 rely on different suppliers than Western systems. This effect compounds over time, especially before 2030 when India still operates a mixed ecosystem of Russian and Western platforms.
So India avoids full integration to avoid system breakdown risk?
Exactly, because partial integration preserves flexibility while preventing operational dependency on a single coalition structure. And that means this hidden factor is not just a limitation. It actively shapes how far India is willing to go in any conflict scenario.
If this constraint is real, what else does it affect across the system?
It extends beyond integration into readiness cycles, because mixed fleets like Su-30MKI and Rafale require parallel maintenance pipelines that cannot be unified quickly. That means India must preserve multiple supply chains simultaneously, limiting how far it can align with any single coalition structure in wartime.
So this is not just a technical issue anymore? It starts shaping operational planning as well?
Exactly, because planners must assume limited interoperability at scale, which affects how forces are deployed, coordinated, and sustained across Indo-Pacific distances. For example, Australian P8 operations may align with U.S. networks, but integrating Indian P8I data into that same C2 framework introduces delays and constraints. This creates friction across the kill chain, from detection to targeting to engagement decisions.
That would also affect deterrence calculations, not just operations.
It does, because deterrence depends on credible joint action, and uncertainty in integration reduces confidence in collective response timelines.
So partners may appear aligned, but not fully executable together?
Yes, and this compounds across multiple layers, including logistics depth, industrial output, and alliance coordination before 2030. When scaled across a regional conflict, this hidden factor influences not just capability, but the entire structure of cooperation and response.
Then the real impact is not visible at the surface level.
Exactly, and it suggests we may be misreading the strength of the system itself.
So this was never just about alignment or political intent, right? It was always constrained by how systems actually function together?
Yes, because sustainment, integration, and supply chains define what can be executed, not just what is agreed politically. Before 2030, India's mixed ecosystem of S400, Su-30MKI, and Western platforms limits how far it can commit operationally.
Then Australia may be overestimating what partnership really delivers?
Potentially, because partnership increases options, but does not guarantee shared risk or synchronized action in a conflict scenario.
So the real issue is not trust, but structural limits?
Exactly, and those limits reshape how deterrence and alliance expectations should be calculated across Indo-Pacific planning. This factor may become more critical over time as systems scale, but integration gaps persist.
So stronger ties do not equal stronger outcomes.
Not necessarily.
Then the real question is no longer whether India will support Australia.
It is how far that support can realistically go under pressure.